What is up, everybody? This is the Owl Recap, a show focused on covering the news, matches, and results of the Overwatch League. I am your host, Andres, aka I Play Games, and it's good to be back. After a few weeks' break, and last week that I couldn't make it back, Bob and Mel were kind enough to hold down the fort, but I am really, really glad to be back. It feels like I'm right back at home. I missed you guys. Yeah, it's a great feeling. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. We're finally settled here in Colorado and, you know, glad to be back on the show and get rolling on all the fun things happening in the off season.
How about you, Bob?
I'm just glad to be settled and actually able to watch Overwatch again and be able to follow things and be able to answer my tweets and Discord messages and everything else. I was pretty much off the grid for a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I didn't mention it, but those two are my co hosts, Bob and Melarina, who recently have moved to Colorado from Kansas. And we all know how that can be. Moving is already a pain in the ass. Moving across state, I can only imagine. And you guys had to do so much to get everything ready. So I'm glad that everything's settling down and you guys can be able to get back into the routines, into the Overwatch playing and, watching the World Cup that's coming up. A lot of exciting things.
For sure.
Before we get into the thick of things, I do want to thank our Patreon, especially our recap producer, Shasir, and everyone else who's supporting us over there. Thank you so much, guys. BlizzCon is coming up, and we're ready. We're already planning our stay. I know that you guys already booked your tickets, so everything's coming into place.
Just got him today. We'll
Yep,
be there.
we'll be
Very
there
nice.
almost the whole week.
Yeah, so thank you to everyone on Patreon. You guys are a huge help to helping us get over there and be able to cover these live events and be able to be part of the community with everyone who attends too. We're looking forward to it. Last year was our first one, and we had a blast. So I cannot wait for this one. It's coming up pretty fast. 2 months, and we'll be there.
Yep. 2 months. It's gonna go by fast. I hope.
Oh, absolutely. All right, guys, let's talk some Overwatch League. So far, there's not a lot to talk about. The All Star games finished. I'm sure you guys covered those last week, so we won't touch on those too much. But aside from that, there's been a lot of news coming out from teams, a lot of releases, a lot of changes, a lot of player rumors going here and over there. We have a few confirmed changes.
A
We
few.
those well, we have a variety of changes coming our way that have been confirmed. So we'll be talking about those a little bit. But we also want to mention that some teams have bigger plans for their team. We can already see Dallas Fuel announcing that they're building a facility for their team for the 2019 Overwatch League season. Bob, you want to speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. Well, if I had to speculate, this would be on the account of Arrow, and I believe Jane said it too, that it's just not a good idea to have your team practicing every day in the same facility as everybody else. I mean, it just leads to. I mean, they didn't say this is what I say, but it leads to espionage, and it leads to teams trying to figure out, like what the Patriots did a while back, where they had cameras on training of different teams so they could see what they were doing. It leads to that, and then it also leads to just a what we saw in season one is the meta would shift, and everybody would do the same thing. It's like they wouldn't do what they were good at or what they practiced. They would just do the same thing. And at stage four was the only real difference in that. So I think separating the team out is going to help a lot with just having surprise plays come game days.
I think it was funny. I think Custa was the one. I can't remember for sure, but somebody tweeted out about
Super.
how they'd like more. Oh, I think it was Super. Yeah. How they'd like more, rivalries and, trying to get in it with the other teams, having to build these rivalries. He's like, but that's really hard to do when you have to walk down the hall the next day and see everybody that you have this rivalry against, like
And I do agree with you guys. It's good that there's some separation, having all of them together for such a long period of time because we had them there for months, right? With very few breaks in between. And not only that, but it gives them a sense of identity, a space that they feel it's theirs, right? It's not a shared space that you have to tiptoe a little bit around, but it's your space. You're gonna have your probably like your own locker in there or whatever it is, your own computer with your peripherals set up in your station that you come in every day to practice.
you
And
don't
not
have to
only that,
worry about talking too loud, like
right?
somebody else is going to hear you.
Plus, I'm sure that if they've been taking notes, they've been looking at teams like Valiant, who has some amazing living facilities for their players. And I think that has a big effect on the overall morale of the team, especially when you're doing like a long run type of marathon like Overwatch League is, and you need your players to be in tip top shape, not only mechanics wise in the game, but with their spirits high and well rested and feeling good. And for that, you need a space that can nurture that, right? You can't just grind them out every day in a tiny little space and expect good results. They gotta be happy to perform.
Well,
Right.
and the Philadelphia Fusion did this kind of where they had their team house. They had some practice facilities in the team house, and then half of the players would stay at the team house one day, the other half would go in. But I think this is better to better separate work from home.
Absolutely too. Put the two spaces in between. I've had to do that with content production, for example, because a lot of it you have to do it from home and stuff. But I found when I can put those two separately, I'm a lot more productive because when you have both, where you're living and where you're working, sometimes it's too hard to get distracted. You know what I mean? And things come up and get in your way, and then next thing you know, you're doing something completely different to what you started doing. So I definitely agree. Some separation is always good.
See, I have the opposite effect. Like when I work from home, I feel like I don't have that like going into the office and leaving the office. I like just continue to work until Bobby comes in here and is like, "Are you serious? Like, are you ever gonna stop working?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess so."
Really, you can work with Bob next to you, asking you all those questions and stuff.
Oh no, I put on like blinders and I've
Yeah, I'm
I've got a
actually
lot of work to do.
Yeah, I'm actually very professional about that when she's working or something. I don't really bother.
Okay, that's nice of you. I could only try to work with Bob right next to me. I wouldn't get any work done. I would end up playing Overwatch or something with him. All right, guys, let's get into the actual trades or more of releases, not trades, because there haven't been as many trades. I think that there's a particular symptom with teams right now. I don't think that a lot of them are keeping or holding on to players. And I think that it's an honest move on their part because it's in the best interest on the players to not stay in teams that are just going to bench them, right? And wait for an opportunity to trade them. Because we do have to keep into account that if a team wants to trade a player, they have to resign it for next season right now. So what a lot of teams are doing instead is letting go of the teams or the teammates or the players that they think they no longer are going to need a team. They're no longer a fit. And instead, they just release them as free agents so that a lot of the up and coming Overwatch League teams, for example, can pick him up. Let's start with Boston Uprising because they're releasing quite a few players. Kalios, Avast, Mistakes, and Snow are all becoming free agents. Not anything too surprising. All of these seemed like names that didn't get much play throughout the season, except for Mistakes, which got a ton of play at the end, but mostly because of circumstances outside of their control. He was just kind of thrown into the wolves there. And to be fair, he did a good job. He filled in. But I think we all agreed that he never lived up to the shoes of his predecessor. What do we think about these releases?
I mean, I think they're good releases. I don't think we're gonna miss any of them, but I think they've got a lot of work to do to sign more players because they're down to 6 and they've really got to fill some of those gaps. Do they have any DPS right now? Striker? Yep.
Striker.
Striker.
they they definitely kept Striker, their little diamond in the rough that they found.
Yeah, I don't. The the three of them besides mistakes I saw as normal, but mistakes. I mean, he really came for the team. He really was a team player, and he really did play well throughout stage 3. So I don't exactly get this, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of new talent coming in. He wasn't a star.
He wasn't a star inside of the team, and I think that it was because they were looking for something else. Mistakes had to fill a lot of heroes that he wasn't particularly his specialty, right?
Yeah, he was
Um,
a tracer main before.
and well, you got Striker, and when you have Striker, do you really need another Tracer main? I think that they would be looking for more of a Widowmaker, a dedicated Widowmaker that can flex a little bit to other, carry, kind of like a Carpe. I think that what they would be looking for, and that's why I think they're letting go of mistakes. Which, like you said, he did a fantastic job, and he presented himself great in the spotlight towards the end. So I wouldn't be surprised if any of the other teams picks mistakes up and brings them into the roster. He definitely has the experience and was able to play under pressure.
Yep.
Yeah, he played under pressure and he was able to come in to a crappy situation and kind of make the best of it. But
Hmm.
I think his best player is Tracer and they have Striker. So they don't need a Tracer backup, right? And I think he had his moments on Widow and other characters, but they weren't bright enough to say he's going to be a consistent good DPS for the team. He was announced later than the other 3 though. Like the other 3 were announced first and then it was like, I don't know, a day later or something that they announced
Maybe they
mistakes.
were on the fence. They're like, "Do we want to let him go?" Because I mean, he did pull up for the team, right? He came in and he brought it at the end. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, but he represented.
It could have been contract negotiations too, possibly. Possibly he wanted
Yeah.
more money than they were going to give him.
I don't know. I doubt it, but he also might have had some offers or some insider information that maybe another team wanted it. That might have tilted the scales and be like, okay, guys, yeah, this is good. I'll find another way. But let's move on to gladiators. Gladiators are actually letting go of quite a few players, and some of them are a little surprising to me. Fisher, Ashler, I Remix, and Silk Thread. They're letting go of 2 of their tanks, and they're letting go of one of the DPS with Silk Thread. Ashler, to be fair,
Asher. It's a typo.
oh my bad.
Oh, sorry. Asher's
I was like,
DPS, yeah. They're
who?
Yeah.
I didn't see Ashler much of
Tracer
the season.
main.
No wonder they're letting him go.
Yep. Tracer
I saw
main
him one game.
had a
Okay,
lot of play
Ashler.
early on.
got it.
What I thought was weird about this is it's their 2 main tanks. Like they got rid of Fisher and I Remix. We talked a little bit about Fisher before. It's just kind of if they're releasing him, he's obviously like trying to get out, or he's a diva, or he's a pain in the butt. You know, like it's got to be something. But the I Remix thing, I mean, now they have no main tank.
Yeah, but I think they were looking at, okay, we need a main tank, and iRemix isn't going to cut it, right? So I think there's better prospects out there, either on other teams getting released or in the contender scene coming up. I mean, I think iRemix, they stood behind him and pretended like he was just the better choice for the playoffs, and I don't think anybody bought that, but
Nope, I
Fisher was
didn't.
already on his way out. I don't think that was Gladiator's decision. I think that was more
Although
on
I
Fisher.
think it's exactly that. So they had I Remix. He started out in the initial signed roster. Then they brought Fisher, and then they realized, wow, there is an extra level of tanks that we can get in our team that would make a huge difference. So at that
Hmm.
point, it became apparent that yeah, I Remix wasn't gonna cut it. But like you said, Bob, something went wrong with Fisher. It was not his performance. So it must have been he was either not meshing with the team or not meshing with the management. He was maybe a little bit hard to wrangle in and tame. He was a savage beast or something. And we know those tank mains sometimes can be a little wild. And maybe Fisher just wanted to fly free. And maybe he wanted to go back to his brethren because we'll get into that later. But he was swiftly signed back into the Overwatch League. It's not like he remained a free agent for very long.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was or where I said it, but um, he there's something weird when every time he would talk smack, it would be all about him. It would always be all about him, not about his team. Like he wasn't a quarterback saying we this, we that. He's saying I this. You should have released me that. Like, it was all him and never the team. So I wonder if the team. I've talked about this many times. Over the past few months, but I wonder if the team was getting a little angry with him too, like the other players. Like we're here too, bro. It's a 6-man game.
Right. He definitely made it sound like he saved the gladiators, that they wouldn't have been anything without him. And I think eventually that's going to get under your skin, right? Like, yes, maybe he was the boost they needed to get to that next level, but he wasn't doing it alone.
Yeah, he was the missing link, but you can't discount the performance that players like Hydration or Surefour had. Like both amazing players that did a lot for the team. And I'm blanking out on their Zen. Their Zen also did a great job this season.
I'm blanking too.
Big Goose. No, Shaz.
Yeah, I was about to say
Shaz.
one Big
Shaz
Shaz?
is no
Goose.
Big Goose was doing great too.
Yeah,
Actually,
Big
both
Goose
lane players did really good.
was the main heel
Yeah.
though.
Yep. So I don't know. I think that yeah, it's definitely some sort of internal conflict. I don't think it was that he wasn't performing with the Gladiators because obviously he did. Since the moment he joined, they clearly improved. But yeah, they might be looking for something that fits them a little better and that can bring that level of tanking back into the team. We'll see what they end up signing up with. So far, we don't know. Let's move on to New York Excelsior. In this one, not a lot of changes of the roster actually, but there was a change in their coaching. They're letting go Wizard Hyung, their one of their main coaches throughout the whole season, and also Janice, the only player that they've released so far. Not a lot of changes, but I think we had heard that their coach Hyung was leaving before this, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's been a couple weeks that we've known that, but just
yeah.
kind of a
We just
review.
condensed everything in.
Some of these aren't brand new. It's just kind of a recap of like everything that all the teams have done up to this point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, we know that that is happening. We don't know. We do we know who they're bringing in as a replacement coach?
Not that I've heard. Maybe chat knows.
I don't think so.
It's interesting that they're letting their coach go since they did such a great job throughout the entire season, but they did struggle towards the end, especially adapting. I don't know if that had to do with anything about releasing their coach. Maybe they wanted to try something different. Maybe he wasn't. His style was a little bit too rigid. I'm just speculating here, right? Because he could also gone back because of personal reasons. It's a very demanding job. You gotta be in another country away from everything you've known, especially if you're from there. So, um, who knows?
Yeah, they say it was a mutual agreement.
That's what
Probably
they
about
always
as
say.
mutual as Fisher not playing in the finals.
Not always, but they do kind of tend to go into amicable terms because nobody wants to seem like the asshole, right? No one wants to seem like, no, we don't want him anymore over here. We
Right.
want to keep those bridges open. Going into San Francisco, Shock, releasing IDDQD, uh, favorite Bob release over here, Doc and Nomi. All three are gone. I'm not surprised about IDDQD. He got no play during the season. A lot of people were surprised that he didn't, but they must have their reasons. Maybe their internal scrims show that he wasn't the best fit, and definitely it shows that they want to keep moving forward with him. So IDDQD, a free agent from now on, same as Doc. Who knows if he'll be picked up? Lucy's getting more play nowadays,
That's
so
what I was gonna say. Yeah, Deck, great Lucio. So I
But
don't
can you
know.
really live down how often you died? I mean, come on.
Yeah, it was pretty
I
rough.
I just think nope, can't do it.
I don't know. Well, they didn't think so either, so they're letting him go. And Nomi as well. Nomi did get a little bit of play, but I guess they want to go with a couple different options here.
Yeah. But I mean, they're kind of getting rid of all the minority here in the Overwatch League. They're got to be careful.
That is true, but we have a lot of international teams coming in, so hopefully those will fill up those spots.
Okay.
Um, that being said, a lot of these releases don't come to a surprise to me. These seem rather obvious for San Francisco Shock. They're a team that honestly has a good core roster. They are missing a little bit of special power here and there. They have shined a couple of games, but they don't have that consistency to go past the middle line. They always stayed as that like middle tier team. Definitely much better than the bottom tier. Never even close to conceding to Shanghai Dragons, but really struggling to take that spot at first. So I don't know. They
Well,
need a lot of work.
they're all just so young. I mean, they should look a lot better this coming season too. I mean, they had a lot of young, really talented players that came in late.
No, that's a good point. Out of all the teams, San Francisco Shock does seem like on the younger side for the majority of their roster.
Yeah, they had a few that couldn't start, like Super
They
and
they got
Sinatra,
they got rid of all the old dudes. Now that I'm thinking about it,
the old dudes. They're like
They want to
25.
they want to groom him. They want to
Dax
groom him
28.
for.
Oh man, get out of here. What are you doing? Trying to play Overwatch at 28. You're ridiculous.
That is pretty old for esports terms, but very young for life. Alrighty, let's move on to Shanghai Dragons
Ah,
because, as expected, and I'm glad to see this because this is the team that needs the most work out of all of them. They're actually letting go out of a big part of their roster. We got Altering, we got Freefill, Sky, Fuking, Roshan, MG, Shuzu, Otto, Diamond, Kong, and Nabe or
those are the
Naib.
two coaches.
Those are the two coaches, Kong and Nabe. But yeah, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players out of a possible 12. They left Gaguri because she's been performing quite well,
Yeah.
and she's honestly a big personality for the team. I think she brings some good PR to the team, so she's a good asset to keep around. Um, but
Dia.
yeah, for the most, oh Dia,
They left
basically their
Dia,
star
Gaguri,
player
and Fearless.
and Fearless. That's right.
Those are the only three.
So
Still there.
they're basically starting from scratch. They're saying this didn't work out, scratch that, let's start again.
It's
They're
like the
the
understatement of the
fifth.
year.
Yeah, they're the fifth expansion team for season 2. They're just gonna come
Yeah.
out with a completely different name. It's like, no, no, we're not Shanghai
Rebrand.
Dragons. We're no, we rebranded. We're now just the
Forget
Shanghai
that Shanghai
dudes.
Dragons ever existed.
Right.
Yeah, it's a totally different team.
Shanghai Gagiris.
I think if they wouldn't have done this, there would have been a lot less people rooting for them, right? Because, like, let's be honest, they didn't win a single game. And to be fair, most of them weren't even that close. There was a match here, too, that was kind of close, but, like, for real, they weren't. And so if they would have just kept the same team and been like, we're still grinding, people would have eventually just been like, okay, well, do yourself a favor. Like, come on,
No, no,
you have
listen.
to try.
They had so many opportunities, so many, and the crowd was behind them too. They wanted them to win so bad. Like they had the fans, they had chances against teams that were defeated with their star players down. Like they could have done it and they couldn't do it. This probably just came from like upper management, like the actual people who bought the franchise and were like, listen, you cannot make let this happen again next season. Like restart the team. I don't care what you do. We don't want this again because, like, come on, it was embarrassing by the end.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's not what
Made
you'd want to see
history.
in Overwatch League, right? Like there was no any given Sunday on this. It was just kind of a free win for everybody. And you don't ever want to see that in on a team in the Overwatch League. Most people were
No,
comparing them to, they could probably get beat by 90% of the contenders teams, and that's it's not fair to the people in contenders that should be, moving up. It's also not fair to the Dragons, who maybe it wasn't even their players, it was just the synergies and the coaching. So I think everybody needs a fresh start. So let's see what they can do.
absolutely. And Overwatch League is supposed to represent the pinnacle of competition in the game, right? Like you have the elite in there, and if you have a team that is not performing or underperforming at the level that Shanghai Dragons is, like you said, some contenders teams would have been able to take that roster handily. At that point, you're not having the best representation there, and it's just far too obvious. It is in everyone's best interest to correct that, both their own franchise, Blizzard, and even other teams, right? Because you don't want to compete against that. We heard from some teammates, or not teammates, but some of the teams, that they were afraid to go against Shanghai Dragons because you didn't want to be the team that lost against them for the first time, right?
Yeah, they even had that going for them and still didn't lose.
Yeah, they had the casters, the desk analysts. They had everybody rooting for them. Even us, when we were there, we got in on it too.
Everyone wanted to do it. I even bought a Shanghai Dragons shirt just to root for them a little more.
I didn't go that far.
They did. They did. Oh, or they were one of the teams that sold some of the most merchandise out of the entire league, if not the most.
Was
Well,
it that
everybody wants to be
in-game
underdog.
currency though? Like, wasn't that in-game merch, not like the actual physical merch?
No, I think it was actual
I think it
physical
was physical. I
merchandise.
think it was physical
Hmm.
merchandise.
I mean, look,
I
Andres bought a shirt. Like, come on. People felt bad for him. People love the underdog, but if they wouldn't have made moves at this point, people would stop feeling bad for them.
that and China also has a gigantic population, so you can't underestimate that.
Right, but I feel like even if you have a gigantic population, you can only watch your team lose so many times before you jump ship and are like, okay, I'm either not going to watch Overwatch League or I'm going to pick a different team
Well,
because
now there's gonna be other options. If you are from China, now you're gonna have several other teams to root for. We know that there is definitely one more confirmed, and there's been some speculation that we might actually even see other teams from there, even one more. So this is just rumors, but I think that there's interest from that region, and Shanghai Dragons no longer has the exclusivity there. So if they're not performing, some of the other Chinese teams are gonna take that fan base.
Yep.
good luck, Shanghai. See what you can put together.
All right, guys, let's jump into Korea. Seoul Dynasty, another one of the teams that needed some work coming into the league very strong and then becoming kind of like a meme in the league as well. Like what happened to Seoul Dynasty. But we have one of their players retiring, Gambler, choosing to willingly walk away. He might be done with the game. He maybe
No,
will
he's going to be
retire.
a professional streamer.
Oh, okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Not the first one to do this, actually. Siegel also announcing that he's going to be a professional streamer. And XQC, whether it was on his own decision or not, it also made that decision.
Oh yeah, I forgot to put on here too, or it got deleted. My bad. Uh, Miro, Guido, and Wakid got released.
Miro, Weekid, and who's the other one?
Guido, he was
And
a
Guido.
support. So a tank, a support, and a DPS they released, and then Gambler's a support too. So
So a big chunk of the roster, they definitely kept Ryu Hong. They kept Fleta, two players that I think performed quite well, even though Ryu Hong was a little bit dried out by the end. But I think it was mostly a matter of meta and his teammates not really supporting him and enabling him more than him not being a good player. And now Anna is back with a vengeance. We'll
Yep.
see if the meta holds until next Overwatch League season. But if it's anything like it's going, it's looking like Ryu Jinghong is gonna be back on the Anna, baby.
How mad do you think Ryu Jae is right now that it's the off season and Anna's like
Oh man.
hardcore in the meta? He's like,
Are you
seriously,
kidding
guys?
me?
Seriously?
But World Cup is coming up, so is he in the World Cup by the way? Is he in the roster? I don't even know.
Oh gosh, I
I
don't
don't think
remember.
he is. I don't think
He
so.
might not be actually. He might not be now that
It's
I think about it.
mostly New York Excelsior.
Hmm.
Well,
They took that spot from him. Ryu Jinghong. Jonak was flexed over there.
We'll see what
um,
we
we'll see what Jonak can do on anybody but Zed. I hope he's been practicing.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. We also have a couple people that got signed, like we
no,
mentioned before.
I think he is on the World Cup team. Oh no, never mind. Keep going.
Oh, okay, okay. Um, Like we mentioned before, Fisher has left Gladiators but has joined Soul Dynasty. They have picked him up as a tank. I'm sure they're trying to look for a replacement for Miro, and they never really had a dedicated main tank so far. So much that we saw Ryo Jinghong pick up Winston for a few games in the middle of the season. Kind of a weird choice, but I think it speaks for the desperation that they had. They really needed a leader in that position, and they couldn't find it throughout the season. I think they're looking at Fisher to fill in that void. Fisher definitely has what it takes. Now, the other question is, can his personality fit in Soul Dynasty? Maybe he'll get along better. Maybe the communication will be better. Them being from the same country might make things a little easier, a little more relatable to one another. So I don't know. He might. This might be what Fisher was looking for, honestly.
Yeah,
I feel
and
like Fisher's very different than Soul Dynasty though. Like Soul Dynasty's always been kind of like the wholesome like team, and Fisher's always been kind of the, crap talker, and
yeah,
it'll be
very
interesting to see
humble.
how they pick that up.
Hopefully they
Maybe
can
that's
help
what he
him.
needs.
I
Yeah,
just hope he doesn't fail because he's really fun to watch.
he is. He's like an XQC, causing some drama, but definitely a great player.
I don't
I
know
don't
if I
know
would
if
put
we're
him in
quite on
that
XQC
category.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe not at that level. Um, but maybe that's what he needs. Maybe he needs to go to Soul Dynasty and get some Mr. Miyagi treatment to, get his ego down, tone down his feelings, and learn to master, uh, you know, all that emotion.
I'll send him some chopsticks. He can learn to catch flies with them.
Learn patience.
Oh gosh.
All right, moving
Beginner
to Houston
luck.
Outlaws.
Oh wait, Seoul also signed two new coaches. So they have
Oh,
a
my
new
bad.
head coach and assistant coach with Goon and KDG, I think, are then.
Changoon and KDG. Also, a section that Seoul Dynasty was missing. We know that they had a lot of difficulty with their coaching staff trying to take him into too many different directions to the point where they looked like an unrecognizable team at some points where nobody was playing to their strengths and they were just doing some wacky compositions that were not catching anybody off guard and in fact were just kind of falling flat.
Hmm.
Um, so hopefully, with the coaching staff changed, we can see more cohesion there from the team. Bob, you want to take us through the Houston Outlaws? I feel like I've been talking too much over here.
I'll let Mel do that.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Mel gets this one.
You're
Oh, I think
muted.
you're muted now.
Oh, sorry. We finally freed Mendo, and now he is on a community content role. So
He's the
it's
the Houston Outlaws content creator.
yeah, so Mendo and Clockwork are both content creators. I'm very upset to see that I won't have to watch Clockwork play anymore, but not really at all. Um, but I think it's interesting because you see Houston making these content creators and Gamblers doing the same thing for Dynasty. He's the Dynasty content creator, right? They
Fusion
didn't
has a
label it
few
that way,
too.
but yeah. So I think that's interesting. I think lots of people will watch Mendo. I don't know. I think people like Clockwork too. I have nothing against Clockwork. It's just He
Is
didn't
the
frequently win when he played, so
is this the we're friends and we don't need you in the roster anymore, so let me give you another job in the team kind of
yeah, I think
message?
so. I think it's kind of like we like you a lot. You're really cool, but you're probably not going to play anywhere else either. So why don't you just stick around here, have some fun, do some streaming for the team. We'll go from there.
Yeah, I think it is definitely both great players. Mendo, honestly, I don't know what happened with him. He never played almost. Did he ever play a game, a single
No,
game? No.
nope.
And I
I,
think this was a personal thing. I don't know if he was
I
not
know at the
ready for
beginning
it.
he was sick, and then he like had his tonsils out, and then like we just never heard. And like everybody would say, "Free Mendo, let's see Mendo," and Mendo never came.
Here's the thing, though. He never really acknowledged it either, like
Right,
in his own channels or social media. It was almost like he was okay with not being played, so it kind of makes me think that honestly it was like his own decision, right? It wasn't that even like the team didn't want to try it. It was more like maybe he didn't want to try it. um
right.
and maybe he was a great asset for the team in the background, now in the back end, being able to practice with them, do scrims, a great player in that regard, maybe a good strategist. But maybe, I don't know, this is my speculation, but maybe he was afraid of the stage.
Yeah, and it could be why they keep some of these people on too, kind of as this content creator role, is because maybe they do have some good insight or some good, things to bring to the analyst side of it, but they're just not going to mesh with the team out there. And that being said, they also release Fact Fiction, which,
It was weird.
yeah, it's weird because they picked him up like halfway through the season.
Yeah, they were
But
excited about him, but then didn't play him hardly at all, and it was just a really weird situation.
yeah, I feel like something happened there, or like they got him in and then he didn't mesh as well, or they've got a good tank line, and I just think that Muma was able to step up and play that Reinhardt role or that Orisa role, and that's I think what Fact Fiction came in as more of a Reinhardt specialist. Am I right on that?
I
Yeah,
have my own thoughts
yeah,
on this one,
you are
and
right
I
on that
think
though.
that Fact Fiction is an amazing Reinhardt, but they brought him in, and I think that Muma also showed at the same time that he was brought in that he was also an amazing Reinhardt, and he was already meshing with the team, already playing really well. There was really no reason to replace Muma when he's playing at that
Right,
level. But at the same time, I think that Fact Fiction is the type of player that is such a good Reinhardt that it's almost a waste to keep him there just in case. You know what I mean? And I think
right,
that that came down to, do we want to keep him just as a sub, or is that a better chance for him to just go find the team and be the star of that team, especially with so many opportunities coming up? Because a lot of players do want to be there for the competition. A lot of players don't just want to be there for the paycheck and call it a night. They want to perform. They want to be out there in the matches. And I think Fact Fiction strikes me as that kind of player. And I think that might have been the decision, not because he didn't fit in the roster or he wasn't a good player, but more because that spot is taken already, and Muma has proven that he deserves it too.
right. And I think originally he didn't sign with the Outlaws because he wasn't going to be a starter, and I think he's in his initial, like, I watched his like behind the scenes interview of him getting picked up by the Outlaws, and he definitely conveyed that there was some salt there about not being on the team earlier. And so I think coming to be on the team and then not playing, I can see Fact Fiction getting a little, you know, unhappy about that situation happening there. So,
I think so. Bob, why don't you guide us through the last two teams?
Well, the London Spitfire added a coach. Is that really his name? Coach 185?
yeah, it is.
All right, Coach. Coach
Coach 185.
185. Just keep thinking Coach 187. Hear him rapping. I have no idea who this guy
Oh, I was
is
thinking
or
like
what he does.
182, like Blink 182.
Oh, I was thinking 187, the rap songs use it. It's the police term for homicide.
Oh, all
Like
right. Hardcore.
a 211 is a armed robbery. You know, it's just 18. That's why all the rappers like 187. But okay, so this isn't about rap. Do
I
you
think
guys know anything about him?
No, no,
no,
I haven't heard from him actually.
I don't know anything about him. I want to say that he's fairly prominent. Like he had a bigger name, I think, maybe in the contender scene. I don't know. I'm kind of talking about things I don't know now, so you should just move on.
Yeah. All right. Well, the Philadelphia Fusion released Shadowburn, Dayfly, and Joe Meister. This seemed
Joe
pretty.
Meister.
This seemed pretty normal to me. Shadowbird was a bit of a bummer for me, just because I've been a fan of him for a long time, and I didn't get to see him much in the league because now I'm a bigger fan of EQO. But either way, like I think Shadowbird could still play for somebody else.
Shadowburn was just like the OG Genji that just awed everyone in the World Cup, right? Like everyone was used to like Seagull's Genji, which was really good at the time. He was definitely redefining the way Genji's played around that time. But then came the World Cup, the first World Cup last year, and freaking Shadowburn just came out of nowhere and carried Russia on his back. Basically, Russia's strategy was like give everything to Shadowburn, watch him kill everyone, and take us to victory. And I think that it was really impressive. So that it will always hold a special place in my heart too.
But
Because after I saw his Genji, I was like, oh my god, there's so much to this character.
he almost did it again just a few weeks ago too, but didn't end up making it. But it's weird though, and I think also something that I saw during the grand finals was Shadowbird yelled for he was playing Hanzo, and Shadowbird yelled for Mercy damage boost during the ultimate, and it's like, dude, that doesn't work anymore. You know, so he wasn't keeping up on the changes in the game either, which is a red flag. Could have possibly been one of the reasons leading up.
And honestly, that does happen. Like real life burnout happens to even these players that have made it to Overwatch League and are getting paid for it. Basically, that's the dream. If you're a competitive player in Overwatch, that's kind of like you made it, right? And even then, I think that nobody's exempt to having to grind out a video game every day. And maybe one day you wake up and you question your decisions and you're like, ah, do I really want to be grinding this game this much? And that fire extinguishes a little bit or tones down a little bit, and it might affect you. I think that's life just coming in the way sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, I don't think anybody was surprised to see the other two leave. I don't think anybody was surprised to see Jihad leave, to be honest. I mean, they don't have a need for him. It's not that he's a bad player. I think he'd be good on a lot of teams, but EQO was just better and more flexible.
Ikyo
Yeah,
is the
and
best player.
and with Fusion, honestly, they have such a fantastic main roster right now. They made it to the finals. Did a great performance. They fell short against Spitfire, but it wasn't because they were not playing good. Spitfire was just playing out of their minds and playing a totally perfected meta game that nobody had seen before.
Right.
But yeah, like you guys said, EQO is such a fantastic player with so down to earth. And you spoke to him, Bob, and like the guy is just like a
Charismatic.
practice machine,
Yeah, but he's also, I mean, he's also like a Jake, kind of like a face of the team. I mean, the guy is charismatic. The guy puts his team in front of him. I mean, the guy's good looking. I mean, like he's got just all of the
Got
stops
the whole
covered.
package,
Yeah,
ladies.
and I mean, he's just cool when you talk to him in person. He's cool like the other side of the pillow.
Right.
And that's
I
that's
think
the kind of player you want, well rounded. Sorry, Mel.
No, I was just gonna say before we move on from this, just like London Spitfire, it said there was only one change, and I think because they released like four people, just remember back in June
Yeah, way
when they
back.
released like Wuhal, Higopen, TZ, like they released those people back in June, so we don't see them anymore. But I think that's I think that was good for them because all 4 of those players are now playing on different teams, and they're not kind of in this
And I just
zone.
like kind of wrapping all of this up. I just really wish we had more transparency in the contract negotiations. I would love to see if some of these players didn't stay because they wanted too much money or they wanted more money. This is something you could follow in most sports, and it's extremely exciting to someone like me who likes that whole building aspect and how much money you have to spend on players and do you keep a star, weighing those pros and cons. I mean, that would be really neat. Like, we just don't really know why people were let go. We don't know, and it would be it'd be cool if we knew all that.
To be completely honest, I would find it very surprising if some of these players are asking for big increases in paychecks so early on. I think that the
Because none
majority
of
of
these
them,
players were stars.
yeah,
Fisher could
right.
have definitely asked for too much,
Okay,
and that
Fisher is
could
the
have.
only one that I can see
Maybe
that being
there's
the
a
case.
maybe there's a handful that have that luxury, right? Like if Jonak becomes a free agent, there might be like 7 offers on the table, and he might be able to like pick and choose there. But that being said, I don't know if these players are like leaving the league because they didn't get a pay increase. Because what is there to leave to? You know what I mean? Like this is probably like one of the best competitive esports jobs that you can have currently
Currently, yep.
anywhere in any game.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they have a lot of bargaining power there.
I
Like
would,
Right.
you don't pay me enough, I leave. But okay, what are you gonna leave to?
Goodbye.
yeah, and I would tend to agree with you. I'm just saying it would be neat to know. You know what I mean? It would be
I
neat
think it'll
to see
come.
it.
I think it'll come with time, to be honest. I think because it's so new right now, the last thing people want is to put a negative spin on any of these players and anything that has to do with the league, right? Because if you start seeing all these players are appearing to be these selfish little brats that want more money for playing their video game, you know what I mean? Like the idea of esports, especially in the US, is still a very new thing. And the idea of the Overwatch League and the way that it's put together is a new concept and a new ideal. And so any negativity, whether it is perceived negative or not in other sports, it will be perceived negative in Overwatch League if you hear somebody was asking for more money and left the team because they didn't get it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think that the public would be too keen on that one because some people are dying to make it up over there. And
Right.
honestly, if one of them really does do that, there is a line of people willing to just go in and replace him immediately. Just look at some of the World Cup teams. So many new names that we
Right.
haven't seen before. Look at contenders. So many new names that you just haven't seen before, and a lot of them are playing at a very very competitive level that are becoming really attractive for this new organization. So
Yeah, and
I
And
it's
don't.
these old organizations too. I mean, look at how many people are getting dropped. They're looking at that talent outside of the Overwatch League. I think it's interesting to see that there's so many drops and not as many trades. I would have thought there'd be more kind of trading because there are some of these players that I do think would fit on other teams, but maybe it just didn't go in that well. And
Yeah.
also, they all had 1-year contracts.
Well, that's
So,
I think that's the main thing. The contracts are expiring right now. So if you are gonna sign them to trade, it's kinda I don't know, it's kind of a dick
what's the
move
point?
for the player, right? You know what I mean? Like we're gonna keep you, but we're gonna bench you and hopefully trade you later down the line.
Right.
So I don't know. I think they're shying away from that. Basically, if they're gonna trade them, they might as well just release them right now. So I think that's what's happening. Just make them all free agents. If any other team wants to pick them up and they fit their roster during the signing period, they can do it. Or if any of the new teams that are coming up wants to sign them, because honestly, these are valuable assets. These are guys that if they want to keep competing, they have a year of experience in the Overwatch League. They had probably like the toughest season. Going into next season, we already have rumors that it's going to be a shorter amount of games and a lot less demanding than this one was. And just the experience of playing at that level, some of the players in contenders are lacking that, right? They
For sure.
haven't played at that what they're playing over here. So I don't know. They're still very valuable for any of the new teams.
Can they sign longer contracts than 1 year? Do you know?
I don't think so. I mean, with contracts, you can do anything your lawyers can draft up with. I don't
Well,
think there's a rule against it, but I
there
don't think
was in season
any
one, though.
team wants to do it. There was a longer contract than 1 year.
No, no, there was a rule they could only be on 1 year contracts.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I'm wondering too, I feel like in the future that'll go into negotiations too, kind of like it does in football and other sports, right? Like I don't want a 1 year contract, I want a 3 year contract to be playing here for you, you know?
Hmm.
And I think that stuff will get as they get a little bit more established and as we get a couple more seasons under our belt.
I
Silver
do
Loki
agree with
in
that.
chat says that two-year contracts is the limit that Blizzard has put on this coming up season. Thank you, Silver
Okay, so
Loki.
they've extended it a little bit.
Hmm.
Although I think that 1 year contract thing was good for season one. Just
For
imagine
Definitely.
sure.
if the Shanghai Dragons roster had been signed for 2 years.
Yeah, it was good for both the players and the organizations.
Okay, did you guys hear the rumor? So Mayhem hasn't announced anything and they said they were going to, but they haven't yet. Um, but have you heard the rumor that Reinforce might join the Mayhem squad?
Oh my god, that'd be awesome. I think he would fit so well. I bet he would bring the dances back.
Him and Jake are just going to trade
Please.
places.
Ah, hey,
Maybe he'll carry everybody on stage like he did for the talent takedown.
He's
I
gonna be
think he's got a
playing
little bit more
for the World Cup,
competition.
right?
Yeah, he is. In Sweden.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah,
I
and
think
he's a
that
top 500 player. And
yo,
he
he's a
was
great
a
he's a great
previous
right hand
pro
player.
too. So he's got a lot going for him.
And honestly, maybe he hasn't been playing at the top competitive level like his Overwatch League counterparts, but he's still been very involved in the casting and analysis. So as far as strategy goes, he is up to date. You know what I mean? In all the nuances of the Reinhardt play, how the Reinhardt needs to be moving and positioning, different like styles of tanking. Like he has that in his strategic mind. Now, executing it is a different story, but he also has the mechanical skills. So I think that, it makes him a very valuable tank to have if he decides to join the league.
Yeah, and he
And he has to be itching. Like he's a competitive guy.
yeah.
When he sees his friends playing and he has to cast them and not play, it has to itch him a little bit.
Yeah.
He had mentioned when we saw him out at like the guild hall or something, that it was a hard thing to go from playing to casting. It's
Right.
not the easiest thing, but I think there might just be rumors about Mayhem because he's on the Sweden World Cup team with two Mayhem players. So it could just be rumors. I don't know. But I thought it was just
That'd
to
be
put a little
awesome.
bug in your ear there, guys. Maybe.
Alrighty, that'll do it for all the trades, or not trades, but releases and signings so far. I'm sure that we'll get more as the year progresses, but we just wanted to give you guys a little snapshot of how the leagues are, or the teams in the league are evolving. A lot of changes that have been made, like we said, were expected. A few were a little weird, but aside from that, in general, in line with what we expected to see, especially looking at you, Shanghai Dragons. Um,
Thank you, Shanghai.
we do want to leave you guys with a little schedule for next weekend. The World Cup teams are doing is it the playoffs right now? Is would you categorize it as that, or round of 6?
It
It's the
is.
group stages. Yeah.
Gosh, I'm
Okay.
Yeah,
so bad at
groups.
World
Yeah,
Cup.
so am I. Group. Yeah, because I first got into it at the end of World Cup last year, and you guys have got to see me grow and become more knowledgeable in the scene over this 8 month period. So I've enjoyed growing with all of the audience and growing myself, but this I didn't get to see. I got to watch some VODs of the first group group stage. I especially watched Finland versus Korea. That was amazing. I'm excited. I really do think that it's going to be USA and Canada that win this group stage and go on to be part of the final eight. But I've had a lot of fans in Brazil trying to sway my vote here and making good cases. I was on Around the Payload a couple of weeks ago with Ham Tornado and Booposaurus, and they made a good case for it. But yeah, there's 3 days, and the fourth day we won't know until the matches play out over the weekend. But everything starts this Friday.
Well, it's the top 24. And it already started. Top 24, I believe, already started, but South Korea's already played. And then the US plays on the 7th.
Yeah,
Well, the
well,
US
the
like group.
USA, yeah, the
Right, but the USA
USA,
group and the
Canada,
South Korea
Brazil,
group.
Austria, Switzerland, Norway. Yeah, they all play this coming weekend, and it looks like the games are here in the U.S., so the times won't be as bad as the group stage times were. They were in the middle of the night or early morning time for us for the last group stage.
Yeah, they were really awkward times. Should be some really good games. That some of the teams have really good rosters, especially Team Canada and Team USA have very familiar names that we've seen from Overwatch League.
And two
So those
Dallas
teams,
coaches.
yep, those
Oh
teams are
yeah.
looking very, very strong. A lot of new names from the other teams: Switzerland and Norway, Brazil also coming up with a lot of new names. Austria. I'm interested to see what they bring because they are a younger scene, right? I would guess that anyone coming out from the Overwatch League at this point is very developed into their, Overwatch career. They have grinded against the best. They are pioneers of strategies. Basically everyone else is kind of copying them. So they're coming from a really, really good point. Some of these other teams are gonna really have to show what they're made of, competing against the best.
Well, and one thing I'll note about Brazil is their Brazil gaming house. They're just a contenders team. Like the whole team is on it.
They
So
also don't have XQC, so
but what I'm saying is they're gonna already mesh because they're already on a team that plays regularly together. And
I
lots of
wasn't
the
saying XQC is a positive for Canada. I was saying that
Wait, I thought he
Brazil,
is in the roster.
he is.
he's on the
Yeah,
Canada roster. I was just pointing out
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
Brazil looks really good because they are an actual contenders team and they don't have anybody to get used to. They're already used to playing as a team.
Brazil has a huge gaming scene. They love gaming in Brazil. It's almost like similar to Korea in that sense that a lot of people down there are used to playing in PC bangs. They get together. They have huge Brazilian communities that play all kinds of games, and it's probably the leading country in Latin America in terms of esports and video game competition. So there's a lot of stuff coming up from there. I will say though, there's a lot less kind of like systematic organization down there. They're not as organized, and they do everything a little more passionately. They do it because they love the games. And there's not as much organization in terms of like coaching and that sort of thing as some of the teams here have had, especially teams coming from the Overwatch League. They've had like so much back end, to work with. So I'm interested to see what they can do because some of these organizations, like you said, come from gaming houses and the likes, which are a little bit more grassroots, and chaotic. But sometimes some really good stuff can come from there, and they are volatile, right? Unexpected. You don't know what they're gonna do. Their strategies might be a little bit unorthodox. So
Well,
sometimes that is the way to beat a very organized team.
yeah, we have a few Brazil listeners, and they've reached out to us before. Super cool. But one thing I did want to just touch on is found out Bonnie is Canadian. That explains so much. It's why he was so
He's very
nice
polite.
and polite and just a real sweetheart. Everything
Okay,
makes sense
XQC
now.
is from Canada too.
I
Can
think
we
XQC,
just like,
just
is he like the
because
outlier
just
here?
because you
He,
were
he's
dropped
like
as a baby
half
does
French
not
or
mean
something like
that you should judge the whole country. No, I'm kidding.
Oh
I
my
like
gosh.
XQC, and if you meet XQC, you know this for a fact too. If you meet him in person, he is a kind person and nice, and
Okay.
yeah, you met him. He was a super cool dude. Or wait, were you not?
Right, just
Maybe you
because
weren't
he
there.
was nice. No, I did, but just because he was nice when you meet him in person, and he can be a complete jerk when you're talking to him online because he's covered by like, his screen. Like,
It's
come
not
on, that
even
doesn't
that.
make him a good person.
It's not even that. It's just the character that he plays on stream. That's not him.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say he's a jerk. He's more passionate. He just like punching the desk. That's about it.
Passionate. He's he's pretty
He
targeting
just
at people and
recently got banned for life from League of Legends.
yeah, permanently
Oh, that's
banned.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Alrighty, we don't want to make this too much about XQC, and that basically covers all of the games that are going on this weekend. Do check them out. Austria, Canada, Norway, Switzerland, Brazil, and the USA will be duking it out and this weekend to see who goes through. My votes are gonna go for Canada and USA, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little surprise in there with Brazil or Switzerland getting in the way. I don't know. Mostly Brazil can be the wild card for me in this group. Before we end the show, we do have a couple of messages from you guys. We got a iTunes review by and Kids Anarchand. He says, "Great show, very knowledgeable casters, good insight, good commentary. I just wanted to see them reviewing the games a little more in depth, kind of like the sportscaster do on ESPN. Just a minor complaint, but I sent a little email, and we get the email from you. We also, is this the same person that
Yeah,
sent the
same
message?
same
Might be.
same
Yeah.
person.
All right. Mike B, thank you so much for sending the comment. We really appreciate all of the feedback. I think that you make a valid point. We definitely have made a note of that. We do get a little passionate when we are out and about in the events and living all the experiences. And sometimes that's kind of what we focus on when we're over there. But we do hear you. We know that a lot of our fans tune into the show to hear about strategy and some of the games being able to be analyzed a little bit more in depth. And we love doing that as well. So we'll be keeping that in mind, especially in episodes where we're attending live events. We want to, have a little bit for everyone there. And I know that some of you guys enjoy watching, kind of like the community aspect of it and how it unfolds over there. But some of you guys tune into the show for the game analysis. Thank you so much for the feedback. Again, you guys want to add anything in here?
Yeah, we're working on it, man. We are. I mean, we were noobs coming into this. We really were. And if you listen from start to end, you'll see the growth in all of us. And the plan is to do more in depth things going forward. It's unfortunate because you sometimes it's hard to remember everything you remember during the cast, and something that I've found hard. But we're working on different ways, writing things down, different ways to really remember those specific points in the game where it actually changed the whole match. And so we are definitely looking into doing that, and we'll just keep getting better as time goes on, or at least
And
try to.
really, yeah, and really, this type of feedback is very appreciative. And, leaving this type of feedback in an email or a message to us is really, really helpful because it does get us to think and we do start talking about it. And, we don't take offense if you don't enjoy the content. And it sounds like you do, but if you don't and you have some feedback to give us, we'd love to hear it. And I think we're constantly just trying to make ourselves better. And I will say, though, he mentioned grand finals day 2, and I just want to say I wasn't on the episode, and we could probably just blame Blevins.
Overwatch yourself.
Maybe we'll blame you because you're not in the episode.
They
No,
probably
I'm
didn't
just
have
Yeah,
show
we
kidding.
notes.
tried so hard.
We did, but they were minimal.
And it literally, I mean, we were literally working 16 hours a day on our house to get it ready for the day it was supposed to start showing. And we kept trying to get the episode done. And thank you to Blevins for covering, because we just couldn't, man. We had to work on the biggest in investment we have, and that was our home, and we had to do that, or else we would have been hurting now.
Yeah, sometimes life does get in the way, but like Mel said, we know there's a lot of you who listen to the show, who enjoy the show, and some of you might enjoy certain parts, might not enjoy some other parts, or might think that we can improve on certain parts. If you do have something to say, please write it to us. We love hearing this feedback because it allows us keep improving on the show the way that you guys like listening to it. We might think that this segment is cool, but it not be as cool to you guys. So you guys letting us know lets us know if we should keep doing certain things or we should keep evolving other things. So again, really appreciate it and
Thank you
write in,
for,
guys.
yeah, thank you for taking the time to write that. We really appreciate it.
Definitely.
That being said, you can find the show over on Twitter at Owl Recap. You can also find us live on Twitch at Twitch TV/, Owl Recap. It's a great way to participate with the show, especially when we're filming. You can interact with us and maybe get us to steer the conversation in a topic that you'd like us to discuss. Also, you can find the community over on Discord at discord.me/Omnic Lab. If you guys want to personally message any of the hosts or meet other people who listen to the show, that is the best place. And you can also email any of the feedback, suggestions, or business inquiries over to contact@owlrecap.com. You can also leave us an iTunes review. Is the best way to support a show for free. Or you can visit patreon.com and leave us a little tip over there if you really enjoy the show. That really helps us out a lot. Thanks again for listening to us today. If people want to find you guys, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. You can find the plethora of different shows that I do over there.
And Mel?
You can find me on Twitter at MelOverwatch.
And you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. Thank you guys. See you next week.
Bye,
Bye.
guys. And we're still live. Should we raid somebody?
Rate him.
Who's on? We got to get back to. Does the chat have any questions?
What's up, chat? Who's
Hey,
in the
hey.
chat?
Silver Loki. I know he's in there.
Silver Loki. Talking about raids. If anyone's trying to do the new World of Warcraft raid, hit me up because I'm not quite there yet. But if anyone wants to try it, I would be down to try it.
All right, we're going to raid OWL, the Overwatch League Network. I'm going to raid them.
They're still going? Man. Are you sure they're on?
Maybe they're
Yep,
doing a
they're on.
marathon.
They're
Maybe
on.
they're doing a marathon.
They're on. They're on. All right, guys, we're going to send you over to them. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Huh. Says we have 5 raiders, but I
4
don't know.
viewers.
Yeah, I don't know what the viewer thing is so weird. All right, guys, take it easy. Silver Loki, I hope you do get to come to one of the group stages and that we are there so we can hang.
Take it easy. All right, that was easy peasy.